In 2005, a young woman met up with a friend in downtown Austin, Texas, and was never seen alive again. And it was her parents who had the terrible misfortune of discovering what really happened to her.
I'm Kathy with a K.
And I'm Kathy with a C.
And this is Killer Destinations. Today's destination is Austin, Texas. In 1839, Austin was named as the capital of the Republic of Texas in honor of Stephen F. Austin, who was later referred to as the father of Texas. Over the years, it evolved from a quiet frontier town into the bustling state capital, playing a crucial role in Texas politics and development. The Texas State Capitol building stands as a testament to the state's grandeur and rich political heritage. And areas like Bremen Block Historic District showcase the city's Grand Victorian era. Now Austin is also widely hailed as the live music capital of the world, with people coming from all over to visit the many music venues. Austin is also home to the prestigious flagship campus of the University of Texas. But UT still experiences the same challenges as every large university that has a reputation as a party school. And while some students take the work hard, play hard motto seriously, others just play hard. And in 2005, downtown Austin was the setting for a grisly encounter that led to one former co-ed's murder. And the police drew a bead on a suspect who was known for playing hard.
Jennifer Cave hung up the phone and was so excited she couldn't wait to call her mom. 2 days earlier, now this is mid-August of 2005, 21-year-old Jennifer showed up at a local law firm in response to a posting for a one-day-only filing job. However, the firm was so impressed by her enthusiasm and good work that she was offered a full-time position to begin the next day. And when Jennifer called her mom, Sharon was so happy for her daughter and also super, super relieved. See, Jennifer had grown up with her four sisters in Bishop, Texas, which is a small city in the southern part of the state with a population of just over 3,000 residents. But in her teens, she moved with her mom and her stepdad, Jim, to Corpus Christi, a much larger city, and graduated from high school there. And after high school, Jennifer moved a few hours north to San Marcos to attend Texas State University as a finance major. But it wasn't a good fit for her, and she dropped out after only one semester and moved to Austin and got a job as a waitress. She briefly attended Austin Community College, but eventually dropped out of that as well. And the main reason that Sharon was so relieved that Jennifer got this new job and was super invested in it and excited was because Jennifer had come clean with her mom, probably about a year prior, and told her mom what it was that actually derailed her college plans. It turned out Jennifer had been hanging out with the wrong people, and she began using drugs. And she got stuck in that cycle for about 2 years while she was waiting tables to make ends meet. And she still continued partying with her friends. But eventually, she stopped. And by the time she had the interview with the firm, Jennifer had been clean and refocused on herself and career plans. And so she was seriously thinking about going back to college and ultimately attending law school. So getting this full-time job with the law firm meant that Jennifer was locked in and she was focused on a brighter future, and her mom, Sharon, could not have been prouder.
But the day after Jennifer called her mom with the good news, Sharon received a call from a man named William Thompson. He told Sharon that he was one of the attorneys at the law firm where Jennifer worked and wondered if maybe Sharon had spoken to her daughter that day. When Sharon said that she hadn't spoken to Jennifer, Mr. Thompson told her that Jennifer hadn't come to work that day. And remember, this was supposed to be Jennifer's first full day and that she wasn't answering her phone. And Kath, the law office actually took it a step further because he told Jennifer's mom that the firm's office manager had gone to Jennifer's apartment and she wasn't there either.
That is impressive. If somebody who seems super enthusiastic and into it didn't show up.
And I'm sure she seemed clean cut and excited about it and all of that. Yeah.
And she probably lived close. But that is cool that they did that.
I can see our office manager, Kim, doing that.
Yeah, but Kim would knock on your apartment door, bang on it with the butt of a gun, point it in the window and say, where the hell are you? Get to the office.
Kick the door in.
It would be more of a threatening, violent thing.
But it would get you out of bed if you were there.
It would get you out of bed.
Now, Sharon told Mr. Thompson that she'd track Jennifer down and would have her call him. And so as soon as she got off the phone with him, she immediately began calling Jennifer's cell phone. But all of her calls went straight to voicemail. So now, of course, Sharon was worried, as any mom would be, but she chose to believe that Jennifer had merely misplaced her phone. So, as the person who paid Jennifer's phone bill, Sharon called the cell service provider and was able to get a list of the recent calls, going back several hours and ending with Jennifer's last call, which was at 1:08 a.m. that Wednesday morning. So this is the same day that Mr. Thompson is talking to Sharon. Sharon first called the numbers that appeared on the list most frequently, hoping to find someone who might know Jennifer's whereabouts. And one of the first numbers Sharon called belonged to a guy named Michael. He told Sharon that Jennifer had called him 3 times within the last 12 hours. Twice she called on late Tuesday night, and once she called very early on Wednesday morning. So in the first call, this was at 10:30 on Tuesday night, Michael said Jennifer told him that she was going to go hang out with a guy who Michael said he didn't know. Now, in a second call around midnight, Jennifer called Michael because the guy she was with was upset and she just needed somebody to talk to. But then in the third call, which was at 1 a.m. early Wednesday morning, Jennifer told Michael that her friend had apparently lost his cell phone. Then he tried to break the window of a parked car, maybe thinking the cell phone was in there. And Jennifer also told Michael that in that moment, as she was speaking to him, this guy friend was urinating on another vehicle. So, class act all around.
Mm-hmm.
So as Michael is explaining all of this to Sharon, he assured her that Jennifer did not sound like she was in trouble or anything like that, and that Michael just assumed by the stories that this guy was intoxicated and being stupid. Michael also assured Sharon that if Jennifer was afraid or even a little iffy with this guy, she would have told him knowing that Michael would go get her.
So after speaking with Michael, one of the numbers on Jennifer's phone that Sharon unsuccessfully tried to call earlier called her back. It turned out to be the friend Michael said Jennifer was hanging out with the night she went missing. Michael knew the first name, but nothing else about him. And the caller's name was Colton Petoniak. So Sharon asked Colton if he'd been with Jennifer late Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning, and to her surprise, Colton said no. So then Sharon decides, oh, no, I know this guy's lying. So Sharon tells a little white lie, and she says, Colton, I spoke with someone who saw you with Jennifer last night. And Colton's like, hold on a second. I wasn't with her. I had run into her there, but we weren't hanging out. We were with different groups of people. And I have no idea where she went after we, had a short conversation. That's it. She wasn't with me. So after speaking to Michael and Colton, Sharon called Jennifer's roommate, Denise. And Denise told Sharon that when she went to bed the night prior, Tuesday, Jennifer had been washing clothes at the apartment. But when she woke up that morning, Wednesday, Jennifer was gone. So Sharon began calling places in Austin where she thought her daughter might go. And she eventually began reaching out to hospitals, and no one had seen her in the prior 24 hours. And when she came up empty with the hospitals, Sharon called the morgue. And thankfully, Jennifer wasn't there either, but it meant to Sharon that Jennifer had disappeared. So Sharon called the Austin Police Department to report her missing. But she was told that Jennifer had not been missing long enough to file a missing persons report. And remember, Jennifer's 21. We're not dealing with like a 10-year-old girl.
And unlike some of the other episodes we've covered, she'd only been missing for 12 to 15 hours.
Exactly.
Whereas before it was if she hasn't been missing for 48, we can't do it.
Right. But this officer fortunately did open a case file, and he gave Sharon a case number, and he said, listen, I'm opening a file, I'm giving you a case number, and I want you to call me back if your daughter continues to remain missing. So it was a technical move. There was no investigation that was initiated, but at least something was done to make Sharon feel better. So Sharon's husband, Jim, left work and met Sharon at their home. And the two of them continued to make calls in an attempt to find anyone who might have seen or spoken to Jennifer. And so even though Sharon had already called Colton, Jim called him. Now, Colton didn't answer the phone, but Jim left him a very, let's say, fatherly, stern message, essentially telling Colton, call me back because they're still looking for Jennifer and I want to talk to you. So a couple hours later, Colton actually returned the call and Sharon answered and said to Colton, if you know anything at all about where our daughter is, please tell us now. And ever the charmer, Colton said, I'm eating pizza with my friends. Leave me alone. I don't know where she's at. And then he hung up. So now the reason Jim wanted to reach out to Colton himself a second time was because this young man was not a total stranger to Jim and Sharon. This was someone that they knew had supplied drugs to Jennifer and used them with her.
So on Thursday morning, so this is now 24 hours after Jennifer's new employer called Sharon about Jennifer being a no-show, Sharon and Jim called the Austin police again. It had been long enough to consider Jennifer a missing person, so she actually spoke to a detective this time. It was Detective Kathleen Hector with the Missing Persons Bureau, and told the detective all that had happened the previous day, including Jennifer's failure to appear at work and Sharon's fruitless attempts to locate her. When Sharon told the detectives about Jennifer's past with Colton, the detective asked Sharon if it was possible that Jennifer was using again. But Sharon was adamant that Jennifer's failure to show up for her first day was not the result of a drug relapse. Jennifer had been far too excited about her new job. She had been working hard. She had a great roommate. She was in a great place and was even planning her outfit with her mom on the phone the night before. Sharon also gave Detective Hector the names and numbers of the people she had called, along with the license plate number of Jennifer's car and other personal information about her daughter.
I'm totally distracted by a female named Detective Hector.
I know. I'll be honest with you, as I was reading court records, I kept seeing Hector, 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 and I was like, who is this guy?
Who is this guy?
And I go back to the front and it's like Detective Kathleen Hector. And I was like, not a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So the detective assured Sharon that the police would check out everything that Sharon had given them and would check to see if Jennifer's car was in the impound lot or any other place they could trace. And after she hung up the phone with the detective, that's when Sharon and Jim decided to make the 200-mile drive north to Austin to continue their search for Jennifer in person. I'm actually surprised they didn't leave earlier, but good restraint for them. They were there 24 hours after they knew. Like, she was making phone calls. She wasn't like flipping out yet.
I see what you're saying. Good restraint. But also it's like her instincts were just like going crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm sure she was also defensive for her daughter because, you know, Jennifer did have a drug history. And
it was a fair question.
Yeah. And we really don't know how significant it was. Like, was she able to kick the habits herself? I don't know. We don't know those details. But, you know, I am sure that she was a mama bear and she just knew this is not my kid.
So she and Jim left Corpus Christi. And when they were about an hour outside of Austin, Detective Hector called Sharon to report that Jennifer's car had been found at a condo complex near the University of Texas campus. And the detective told Sharon that Jennifer's friend Colton lived at the address where the car was found in apartment 88. So when Sharon and Jim arrived in Austin, where do you think they went? Straight to the address that the detective gave them.
And you know, it's funny because Kathy and I were both like, why'd the detective give the address? But then it's like, well, because she didn't believe there was going to be a problem.
Right.
She was like, hey.
She's strung out,
hungover.
Like,
sorry, she relapsed. This is where she is. Go collect your kid, you know?
Sharon and Jim were met at Colton's apartment by their daughter, Vanessa, who was one of Jennifer's sisters. And she'd actually driven down from Dallas to help with the search. At the address, they found a large condo complex called the Orange Tree. And they found Jennifer's car parked on the street and Colton's apartment on the second floor. Kathy, Sharon actually saw Detective Hector's business cards had been left on both Jennifer's car and Colton's front door. So they were relieved to see that Detective Hector had actually made an attempt. So Sharon and Jim knocked on Colton's door and windows, calling out Jennifer's name, but there was no response. So after about an hour, they left the orange tree and went to a hotel, and Sharon actually drove Jennifer's car to the hotel because she had a spare key. But nothing inside of her car looked out of place.
As Sharon is driving back to the hotel, she started recalling a conversation with one of Jennifer's friends where she was informed that Colton was from Arkansas. And Sharon had seen a car with an Arkansas license plate at the orange tree. So since Colton's last name, Petoniak, was not a common name, when Sharon got back to the hotel, she immediately called directory assistance for Arkansas and was able to reach his father. She told Mr. Petoniak, "Hey, you don't know me, but my daughter Jennifer hasn't been seen in 2 days. And the last person that she was with was your son." And so Mr. Petoniak told Sharon, "Yeah, I know. I talked to my son Colton on Tuesday night, and he said that he wanted to go out to dinner, and he asked if he could take Jennifer to dinner using his mother's credit card." So despite Colton's protests that he'd only run into Jennifer briefly on Tuesday, Mr. Petoniak confirmed that the two went to dinner together that night. So Sharon and Jim returned to the Orange Tree condo complex the following morning. Again, they knocked on Colton's apartment door but got no response. And Sharon had already been told at this point that there was no evidence of a crime and there was nothing that Detective Hector could do. But she called police again anyway. And to their credit, Austin PD dispatched an officer to the Orange Tree. A gentleman named Officer Salinas arrives, and Sharon said, "Listen, my daughter's missing, and I think she's in this apartment. Apartment 88. Her car was in the lot. This guy's car was in the lot. They were together. She's missing, etc., etc." So Officer Salinas checked out Jennifer's car and Colton's car. Like, obviously, he could get into Jennifer's car, but not Colton's car. And he just kind of looked to see if anything was fishy or suspicious or whatever. And he didn't notice anything that stood out. But anyway, he went to apartment 88 and knocked on the door. Kept knocking, identified who he was, but there was no answer. Then the officer spoke with one of the tenants who told him that the condos were individually owned and that there was no building manager who would have a master key. So Officer Salinas feels like he's in a pickle, and he calls his superiors on the radio and he's like, "Look, this is the situation and these people really want to get into this apartment." But his superior's like, "No, you don't have probable cause to just bust your way into somebody's apartment." So the officer says, "Look, I am sorry. I am not authorized to use force to get into this apartment. I have observed nothing that allows me to do so." And then Jim goes, "Well, what would happen if I forced entry into the apartment?" And the officer looks at him and says, "If you break in, you could be charged with criminal trespass."
Do you think Officer Salinas was in any way suspicious that Jim might have a crowbar in the back of his pants?
Or that Sharon had like a battering ram hiding behind her back.
Exactly. Or something in her purse that could let
Vanessa
her pop the lock.
was like standing there with a hammer.
We're just here to help with some home improvement.
Exactly.
It looks a little run down.
He probably had some clues, but he let it slide by.
That's why he was like, "I'm out of here.
Right.
I know nothing. I see nothing.
Exactly.
Let me know how it goes."
Yeah, and he actually did leave.
Yes. So Officer Salinas toddles on back to the station because, again, we need a toddler right now. And Sharon and Jim didn't know what to do because their desperation to find their daughter was increasing exponentially with each passing minute. And although we joked about burglary tools, I bet at this point, Kath, they wish they brought them. But they both knew that Colton was the key to finding Jennifer, and getting inside his condo to look for clues was the only place they could start. Her car was there, and he'd clearly been the last person with her because his dad ratted him out. So Sharon and Jim called a locksmith who came out to the apartment, and he couldn't open the door. Now, I say couldn't because that was how it was written in court records, but last time I checked, they're not allowed to open doors unless you can prove you have some reason to be in that place and not just because you want to be.
Right. Some connection like an ID or whatever, driver's
a
license.
lease.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So we're going to say he wouldn't open the door as opposed to he couldn't open the door. But as Sharon and Jim stood outside Colton's apartment after the locksmith left, Kath, I mean, you can imagine they were desperate.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And so Sharon, of course, is standing there like trying to figure out what to do. And she noticed that one of the condo's windows had a crack in it. So she actually, mothers and their desperation are the mothers of invention. I mean,
right.
You know,
right. Necessity is a mother of invention. And she needed to get into this place.
And she did. So she saw this window crack. She used her fingernail, which I'm guessing had to have been a long nail, not like mine are right now. And she was able to break a tiny hole in the glass. And when she did that, they were then able to release the lock on the window and Jim climbed inside. So once Jim was in the apartment, it was dark inside. All of the blinds had been drawn. He couldn't see anything. And so he started to call out, "I'm here to help. Please don't hurt me. Please don't shoot me. Jennifer, I'm looking for you." Now, thankfully, he kept a flashlight in his car and he'd brought it with him. So he turned it on and started to look around the studio apartment. I mean, I think the biggest fear he had was that he was going to walk in and Colton was there and he was going to get ambushed. So he swept the flashlight across the condo and it turned out it was a studio. So the minute he was in the window, it was the living room, the bedroom, and the kitchen, and nobody was in there. So he flipped on the lights, and as he did so, he realized it was a mess. And the way he described it was typical college guy style, right? Clothes were thrown all around, dirty clothes, clean clothes, old food on the table, the trash hadn't been taken out. But what stood out most in his mind was the stench. There wasn't anything he saw in the main living area of the condo that looked like it was putting off the smell. And so he walked down this short hallway to the bathroom. And when he opened that door, this smell hit him hard. He immediately flipped the bathroom light on and he saw that there was something in the bathtub, but he couldn't quite register what it was. He just knew that it was something bad. And so he started yelling for Sharon to call 911. And as he did that, he realized what he was seeing. There was a body in the bathtub and it did not have a head. So Kathy, Jim threw himself at that front door because he had to get out of that place. But more importantly, he had to make sure that Sharon didn't go in there. And so as he came out of the condo and shut the door behind him, Sharon was right there freaking out, trying to get past him. And she's like, why? Why? Is Jennifer in there? Did you find Jennifer? And of course, the minute Jim ran out of the condo without Jennifer, Sharon knew that her daughter was dead, but she wanted to go to her. And Jim's like, you cannot go in. You cannot go in. I will not let you in. And she's like, why? Why? I want to see Jennifer. And he's like, no. And she's like, what did you see? Why do you think it was Jennifer? And he said, I think I recognized her feet and I saw a greenish colored dress, which looked like one that I'd seen Jennifer wear before. So Jim just put his arms around Sharon and they waited for the police to arrive.
When police arrived in the bathroom, they found a scene out of a horror movie. A female body was missing its head and hands. There was a small hacksaw that was lying on the body's chest, and there was a plastic garbage bag on the bathroom floor containing the hands and the head. And in addition to the hacksaw, investigators found a knife and a machete covered with blood, as well as cartridge casings in the condo. And in Colton's car, investigators found a pistol. So the autopsy confirmed what Sharon, Jim, and Jennifer's siblings already knew in their hearts. The body in Colton's bathtub was Jennifer Cave. And the autopsy showed that Jennifer was killed by a single gunshot, and the bullet passed through her right arm and re-entered her body through the ribs, eventually puncturing her aorta. And in addition to the bullet wound, there were a lot of stab wounds to her body. She had been stabbed 18 times in her face and neck, and another cluster of 10 stab wounds were found on the left side of her body, mostly her left shoulder and breast. But the medical examiner also found something that no one expected. The bullet wound to Jennifer's aorta caused instant death, and all of the horrific cuts and stab wounds were thankfully inflicted post-mortem after she was already dead. And there was a second bullet wound found in her head when her body was x-rayed, but again, that had been inflicted post-mortem. And Kath, to be honest with you, if I were her parents, I would be so grateful that the bullet caused instant death. Okay, so obviously police now need to talk to Colton Petoniak, but they didn't know where he was in the moment, so they started looking into his background. And they found out he'd grown up in Bryant, Arkansas, which is just outside of Little Rock, and he attended an all-boys school in Little Rock, graduating in 2001 as a National Merit Scholar. And after graduation, he attended UT Austin on an academic scholarship. Colton did well in college at first, but soon he began playing too hard, taking drugs, drinking, getting super into the party scene, blowing off academics. You know, first it begins with sleeping in late, missing your 8 a.m. class, and then it continues.
And then your 10 a.m. class, and then your noon class. Been there.
Exactly. And remember, I did get an F in French my freshman year because I could not manage to stay awake during my 8 a.m. class.
See, it happens to everyone.
It happens. So just a year after he entered UT, he was arrested for DUI and suspended from the university.
Now, here's the thing, Kath. I could not find out why a DUI suspended him from the university. So my feeling is that there had to have been other run-ins, either with university police or something.
Yes. You got this from court records, so we know that he had a DUI, he was suspended from the university, but usually the two
don't go hand in hand.
Exactly.
Yeah. So exactly. I think the court record may have, paraphrased a bit.
It was a dusting of what happened.
Exactly.
So for the next 2.5 years, Colton was in and out of the university because, remember, it was a suspension, not an expulsion. And it was because he continued to party heavily and he just couldn't maintain any kind of class schedule. So Colton met Jennifer Cave in the summer of 2004. Now, this is just 1 year before her murder, at the height of his struggles with alcohol and drugs. Now, he and Jennifer never had a romantic relationship, but they became close friends. And remember, it was her friendship with Colton that led her to start drinking and drugging, and he provided her, with drugs. So when police went looking for Colton, they'd found out he dipped.
I'm sorry, he did what?
He did, excuse me?
He dippity dipped. He dippity doodah dipped.
Exactly.
This is a bigger deal than you're making it be.
What do you mean?
He dipped.
Okay.
You know how I love the dips.
You're right. He dipped. Dippity doo dah. Right?
I need more energy there, but that's okay. It's late at night. It's fine.
We've got to move on and finish this.
All right, go.
All right. So, because detectives had no idea where he went, they started with Arkansas and they struck out. And they spent several days talking to anyone and everyone who knew Colton, but they could not get a beat on the man. Then, on August 23rd, 2005, now this is 4 days after Jennifer's body was found, they got a break in the case. It came from a couple named Lauren and Carol Hall, and it turned out that their daughter, Laura, was Colton's girlfriend. Mr. and Mrs. Hall told police that they'd received 2 bizarre emails from their daughter that morning, and the most chilling one said, "Colton's famous and I'm never coming home." And they were like, what the hell? So they had seen a picture of Jennifer Cave in the news. They knew she had been murdered, and their daughter Laura looked exactly like Jennifer. So after learning Laura was with Colton, her parents became frantic, fearing that she would be his next victim. So Mr. and Mrs. Hall desperately tried to reach their daughter Laura, and when she finally answered her cell phone, she told them, yes, in fact, I am with Colton, and we crossed the border into Mexico. And then she told her father that Colton had killed someone, and he flipped out, and he just wanted to run away. So Laura says, hey, listen, Colton told me to take him to Mexico, so I did. So after the phone call, Laura's parents, of course, are now completely freaked out, and they called Austin PD.
So Austin police now has a murder suspect who dipped to Mexico with a possible hostage. Despite Laura's calls to her parents and emails, they don't know that she's there willingly. So when you have that kind of situation, Kath, who are you going to call?
Not Ghostbusters.
No. U.S. Marshals.
Boom, girl.
And what do they always do?
They get their man.
So the Austin PD told the marshals that the couple had left Austin in Laura's car. So, of course, the marshals get on this as soon as they have the information. And what do, Kath? They are looking in every hen house, tree house, outhouse to look for where they went. So the most likely border crossing for them was Del Rio, Texas, which was about 4 hours from Austin. And they went to border control. And of course, they saw Laura's car crossing into Mexico. So once the marshals knew that they'd gone through the Del Rio border crossing, the marshals started tracking the license plate. And they found that Laura's car had gone more than an hour south to the city of Piedras Negras. And they found that Colton and Laura had checked into a motel in that city on Friday, August 19th. This was the day after Jennifer's body was found. So the marshals went there, they knocked on the door, and they arrested Colton and Laura. This was just hours after Mr. and Mrs. Hall had called the Austin PD. Back in Austin, Colton Petoniak was charged with murder. And while Laura was not arrested initially, she was actually arrested the following month on charges of tampering with evidence and hindering the apprehension of Colton. Now, 16 months later, so we're now in late January 2007, 24-year-old Colton was convicted of murder. And just a few months later, Laura Hall was convicted as well. Kathy, it turned out that Laura significantly participated in the mutilation of Jennifer Cave's body after Colton killed her. So Colton was sentenced to 55 years in prison and will be eligible for parole starting in 2033 after serving half of his sentence. So Colton is currently incarcerated at the men's maximum security prison in Brazoria County, Texas. Now, Laura was initially sentenced to 5 years for the tampering and 1 year for the hindering, with the sentences to be served concurrently, which always pisses me off.
I know.
Consecutively.
It's like, it depends, though. You know what I mean? Like, no, it depends on the crime. Like, some crimes are, okay, we can do concurrent, but honestly, like murder with anything related to a child, no, you get consecutive. It is unbelievable to me that she was able to participate in the dismemberment of Jennifer's body.
I don't understand it. So, you know how we talked about Jennifer and she remained friends with Colton even though she had gotten clean? Jennifer's mom had said that that was who Jennifer was. She was drawn to the person who needed help the most, and she would always be there for them no matter what, even to her own detriment. Laura's parents said the same thing about Laura, that she was somebody who only saw the good in a person, no matter what it cost her.
However,
I agree.
Laura was no Jennifer. You know what I mean?
Well, and not only that, but seeing the good in person doesn't mean that you're also then going to commit horrendous crimes against somebody. They were trying to give it as an excuse, and that's not an excuse.
No, like
you still need your moral compass.
Seeing the good in a person doesn't mean you're going to cut up body parts for them.
Right.
That's crazy.
You need your moral compass.
Correct.
Regardless of what happens. So even though Laura was given a 5-year sentence, she appealed her conviction, right? She said she wasn't guilty. And 3 years later, the Texas Court of Appeals ruled on her case. And Kathy, this was interesting to me, and I clearly still have more schooling to do at Killer Destination School of Law, but the Texas Court of Appeals did not overturn the conviction, but they did overturn her sentence. So during the first sentencing hearing, the prosecution apparently did not disclose evidence they intended to introduce at the sentencing hearing. So the defense was totally shocked when they came up with this information and Laura was sentenced based on it. So the Texas Court of Appeals said, you know what? She gets a new sentencing hearing. So in 2012, the resentencing trial was held in front of a new jury. And Kathy, this time the prosecution brought 26 witnesses to the stand and the defense brought 4.
You know, the prosecution was like, oh, okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. we're going to bring in everybody we didn't bring in before.
We're going to bombard you with this,
Exactly.
and you're going to regret the day you filed that
like,
appeal.
girlfriend, this is going to be ugly.
Right. And it was. Because this new Austin jury heard graphic testimony about what Laura did the night that Jennifer was killed, including the fact, Kathy, that she assisted and egged Colton on in mutilating Jennifer's body.
And so this was presented to the jury. It's
New one.
Yeah, it's my understanding that this was presented to the jury by way of recorded jailhouse phone calls.
Part of these conversations were ones that had been recorded with her cellie. And they said the same things that basically were said on the phone calls Laura was making, that she had participated in everything that was done to Jennifer Cave.
And had shit-talked Jennifer's parents.
Threatened to go out and kill Jennifer's parents as soon as she could.
Right.
And wanted to make sure that they rued the day that they ever
put her in jail or whatever.
Even though she put herself in jail.
Exactly. And so the new jury's hearing all this. Can you imagine?
So Laura's appeal backfired, Kath, because this new jury doubled her original sentence and gave her a 10-year prison term.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah. So Laura was able to apply for parole within a few years, and she was actually denied the first 3 times she tried to get parole. But on attempt number 4 in March 2018, Laura was granted parole and released from prison under mandatory supervision that included a number of things, including ankle monitoring. But this was just 7 months prior to the completion of her full sentence.
Despite the convictions, it was never actually explained or revealed what really happened to Jennifer Cave on the night she was murdered, or why her supposed friend Colton killed her with such incredible depravity. After Colton's trial, Jennifer's mother said that when she heard what happened to her daughter, it ripped her apart. She said, they did these things to her body, to lose somebody, and then to have them dismembered. That's almost more than some people could bear. And I have never seen pictures of the crime scene because for my mental health, that is not a good thing. So after learning that mutilating and dismembering a corpse was only a misdemeanor in Texas, Sharon and her husband Jim successfully fought for tougher penalties. The new Texas law is called the Jennifer Cave Act. The desecration and tampering of a human corpse was reclassified from a misdemeanor to a felony and gives district attorneys much stricter sentencing guidelines.